what I'd hope to come out of this conversation that we have this evening is that this council does write to Kavanagh on behalf of the local community, asking them to make clear their intent on their moral commitment to provide that community land. And I think until they've actually made a statement to us, we can't really do too much. And I think once we have that, if they say, yes, we're absolutely not going to do what we originally intended to do through the Section 106 agreement, at that point then we go to the press and, you know, make sure that everyone who's going to buy a Kavanagh home knows full well that they don't support local communities.
Okay.
I'm a little reluctant to admit this, but I actually went to school with Alexis Kavanagh. So, and although I haven't seen him for a while, we're very close, and I think I'd quite like to be slightly more involved if I can be, because I do feel like if I can go through, there might be a way in to talk to them and make it like evident, because it is shareholders, and you're right, Katie, about that, but they do feel a moral obligation, as far as I know, to the communities, especially the Southwest. So if I can be of any help, maybe I could talk to you afterwards. And,
Yes, Katie.
So it was really, again, while I know how much this is an issue with Cornwall Council, I remember distinctly like the first planning meeting that we had, where it was like everyone was doing it. And I was told there that I shouldn't be researching the developers when it comes to planning about their reputation and things like that, because for each plan application comes through, we have to, as was said, we'll take it uniquely, it comes fresh, you can't look up literally, and I was looking at developers such as this where they hadn't finished even the sewage, and there was a pile of sewage literally building up outside someone's house that they'd sold and someone was living in, and things like that. The fact that that is an issue with the planning process there, and there's an issue, as I say, the legal, their legal side there moving so slowly. So I don't think it is just a write a letter. I think we need to be doing something about Cornwall Council at this point. But what can we do with Cornwall Council? I'm sorry, it's a Cornwall Council issue.
There are things in planning called material planning considerations, and the quality of an individual developer is not, in my understanding, a material planning consideration. Even though perhaps it should be.
Yes. Okay, so a proposal really on expressing our feelings.
Well, I propose that we write, or the Town Council writes on behalf of the local community, expressing concern over the potential loss of the community land, and ask Kavanagh to make their intentions clear. And I'll have a separate conversation with Kelly, so perhaps they anticipate that letter arriving on their desk.
I don't second that.
Well, as I said, I think there's something here that we need to do to Cornwall Council. If that's an angry letter or whatever, then we do that. At least get that kicking down, because
Keith's already, you have already been in discussions with them.
Well, I've shared in terms of as far as we've got to date. If you want to
include
spur them into getting that up the agenda, because obviously next spring's a long time away.
Yes.
I think it's easy to have as 2 resolutions.
Okay, so separate. Or did you want to include it? Sorry, did you say you didn't want to?
Well, it's not up to me, but in terms of there's a proposal on the table, but it doesn't mean you can't resolve other actions
yes,
which are relevant.
Yeah, okay. So where do we get to? I just second it, and then all those in favour of the one that's on the table to Kavanagh so far. So all those in favour of writing to Kavanagh and asking for their intentions. So that's everybody. Thank you. And
so
a resolution to
right
to Cornwall Council.
I guess our frustrations with the situation, coupled with other pre-existing scenarios that we've got here in terms of legal
Status.
What, sorry?
Stasis.
Yeah. Like
Or
the
something.
Stasis was a quite
Yeah,
strong
maybe
word.
not stasis, but like,
Slowness. Legal glue.
like just how do we describe it?
Like,
It's a
I
slow
have
process.
Yeah,
to
okay.
see in on.
I wonder, if you're asking my advice, I would probably not hugely conflate the issues.
Yeah.
To be honest, whilst there is, and we can roll this into the general concern about the lack of response from legal
Yes.
day-to-day business, as it were, and things like that. But this issue is very much different compared with the transfer of the skate park, which whilst is very frustrating for us, I wouldn't necessarily conflate those two things.
So we're asking them to resolve this issue in a timely manner with.
Yes, because if you try and roll loads of things
Yeah.
in it,
Disappointment with
What's happened
what's happened.
and the request to resolve the issue with Cabana in a timely manner.
Yes.
Sorry.
Yes.
Second.
Okay, all those. Okay, that's everybody. All right, thank you very much. Wow, Okay, number 11, to receive a report on the housing survey conducted in partnership with Cornwall Council and determine any appropriate actions. And we've got a paper, haven't we, on this one? I'll just open it. And I think Vicky was
Yeah.
going to say a few words on this one.
I have sort of put my name forward for lead in this, and then having done that, there was a few expletives deleted, sort of on, with everything that's happening with housing at the moment, on what I am left myself in for. We've got the survey. I don't know whether everybody's managed to have a chance to read through it, etc. Keith has been extremely helpful to me in this, because I've been trying to get my head around it, what I think, etc., etc. And we had quite a long meeting the other day going over the survey and looking at the housing survey, the report on the actual survey. And I'll try and keep this fairly brief. One of the biggest things that we feel came out from this was the amount of people who are almost hidden because they don't put their name down for council housing. When I was growing up down here, I never did. I moved away because I couldn't afford to buy down here. I'd be lucky enough to do okay and come back again. Yeah, I know what the situation is like down here. I've known people sleeping in sheds through the winter because that has been, you probably know the same, Mr. Jennings. It is a bad situation around the Bude area and Cornwall in general. We are extremely popular with people moving into the area, which pushes the prices up, above the wages of most local people. The chances of trying to get a mortgage are extremely slim when you look at your earnings versus what you need. Yeah, we want people to put their names down. One of the other things that came out of this is the need for 2 and 3 bedroomed houses more. What I feel we've been seeing on planning, bearing in mind I'm still very new to this, is the proposal for 4 and 5 bedroomed houses. They are totally out of anybody's league down here. And interestingly enough, what came up on my newsfeed this morning is Fort Offisan down in Plymouth, which is an absolute prime waterfront site, major harbour views, etc., etc. It's being developed by a previous chairman, Greg Stifles, I think it was, of the BBC. They are putting in there 40 2 and 3 bedroom apartments. There's a further 3 2 and 3 bedroom houses. These are all spread out throughout the site, fitted in the structure of the building and some new ones. They are putting in 16 1-bedroom studio type apartments. There's a further 3 3-bedroom apartments fitted in elsewhere. A further 2 3-bedroom houses. That's 63 dwellings that are likely to be... Obviously I'm saying the right thing. that are potentials for people in the Plymouth area. Bear in mind, in Plymouth, I think they probably get better wages than a lot of people here. Potential homes. So I feel that what we should be doing with this survey is using it to feed into the planning, so that these developers who come and say, oh, we want to build, £3-4 million homes up over there. No, we need apartments, we need smaller houses, we need terraced houses. We do have terraced houses in Bude. Look at Victoria Road. Look at some of the roads off Pathfields, Westby Road, around that area. We do have terraced houses. We need more. We don't have many apartments. We do have some apartments where some of the bigger houses have been split up. But that's where I see things going at the moment. And the Community Land Trust idea, I haven't had a chance to look into this to get my head around it, as you say. But there was something, Devon Council up at Willicombe, they had just planning to build 21 houses. They've required a field, etc. Now, from what Keith and I was talking, and from understanding what Keith was saying, if we went down the Community Land Trust into purchasing property, buying property, it would need to almost be a completely separate set up from Bude-Stratton Town Council. We have got Branch Minister Trust in the area, and their business is in a lot of ways providing housing. Perhaps we need to be having a conversation with the Branch Minister Trust, and perhaps I don't know. This is just ideas at the moment. As I said, I've only just taken it on. Yeah. That's my basic on it, I think. The recommendations there are on the attached document that Keith very kindly put together with thoughts about the fact that people are not putting their names forward, that we need more affordable housing in the area. There is a need for self-build. Yeah, people need to register. Can you sit down there, please?
Thank you very much. Yeah, I think, Cornwall Council obviously base the local need on who's asking for it, and people aren't putting themselves down. I know they've got a huge backlog on their system at the other end as well. So, makes a lot of sense to encourage people to sign up and see if they are eligible.
Because it's
Give
through
them a more accurate picture of what, the local need is.
because it's through those numbers
Yeah.
that then drives
Of
the
course.
planning.
Yeah.
And unless we can say that there's the need,
Yes.
we can't turn around in planning and say, well, actually, 40% of our population want 2 and 3 bedrooms, not 4 bedroom.
Quick question for me. Have you got any ideas about how to encourage more people to register?
Get the word out there.
Comms.
Yeah.
Comms is the proposal. Undertake comms work, so get the message out there that we've carried out this survey and it looks as though actually lots of people that should apply haven't, so please do it, etc. Kevin?
Well, I think the message is a very simple one. You ain't going to get social housing, you ain't going to get old-fashioned council house. Forget it, it isn't going to happen. But whack your name down anyway, because it's got other good stuff that flows from it. Now, I don't know, that isn't what you've got on a leaflet, is it? But we need to divorce the possibility of getting social housing from putting your name on the list, which is a horrible thing to have to say to somebody, isn't it? You ain't going to get the house, but put your name down anyway because it helps our figures and it's good data. It's not an easy sell, but that's basically what we're saying.
Just, I suppose a clarification, you're right in many senses, but the language has moved on, hasn't it?
Mm-hmm.
So these days, the term is affordable housing. I'm afraid that also can be a misnomer, because for many people, even affordable housing isn't affordable. But that's, but in terms of there are different types of affordable housing. but the planning system is predicated around that. So the more people that are on the home choice system that are recognised as in housing need, that drives the planning system, and it means, as in our own plans and Cornwall Council, be asking developers to deliver more affordable housing within their scheme. And so whether it's, by no means is it old-fashioned council housing, but affordable housing in the various guises it takes. At least it takes that through. And so the more it's recognised, the more chance.
Philippa?
Well, my understanding is that
Oh, no, Pete, sorry.
the affordable housing that is a legal requirement in any development over 10 houses. The only way you can actually get that affordable housing is to have your name on these lists, because that proves that you've got a local connection. So it's quite, you know, I can understand what you're saying about not getting a council house. You won't get a council house, but you won't get the affordable housing either unless your name's on the list.
Okay. Katie, and then I'll go to Peter, sorry.
I was wondering if there was some more that we could be doing around, I guess, is that if they can empower you with basically to get that discussion rolling with Blanchminster, but also potentially looking at other funds as well. Like today I found like a social investment grants opportunity where they do things such as allow you to buy land, do that massive grants to allow you to buy land to do stuff like this, or to even just to look after, to conserve the land and things like that. So basically, is there anything else you want us to sort of just start to throw at you, basically, so you can start to look at this?
Well, that's something I haven't come across yet.
Yeah.
As I say, I'm still trying to,
Yeah. Peter?
I think Mr Jennings might have put his hand up, and I'd be quite interested to hear what he's going to say before I speak, if there is something you'd like to say.
We're in this mess, here in particular, because of that Wally and his one Cornwall. When it was North Cornwall District Council, the local people, we had a local connection to apply for a house. Now, when a house comes up, all of Cornwall applies for it. And the local people miss out every bloody time. This list, where's the list?
I don't know.
There is no list. Every time a house comes up, you've got to apply for it. And what happens? You've got all these bloody emmets come down here. They get the worst caravan, worst property they can find. Then they go straight on the list, and we got this, and they get the places, because their need is greatest. It's the biggest call out. And we're in that mess because of this one Cornwall. Years ago, Bude Town Council had a list. When you come to the top of the list, you got the next place. That's how it always worked. And now it's a total joke. And it is totally against the local people. They haven't got a hope in hell. And I've spoken to quite a few. And they just give up. You say, well, they know they ain't going to get it. Because some bloody emmets come down here and pull the fast one. And that's what they do every time. And nobody else, and you as the council, should be kicking off at Cornwall Council saying, you must house the local people.
Peter?
Wish I'd last then. I wish I knew the housing allocation system inside out. I don't. Right? What I do know is that you do have to prove local connections before getting a council house of any sort. Right? And that goes into years. I mean, it's 2 years minimum, I believe. So you can't just move into the area and get a council house. It's not as simple as that. You're right in one way, and I might get this wrong, right? And how I understand this is that council houses, or houses that are owned by the council in villages, are often allocated only to people with a connection to that village. Council houses in towns, and we are deemed to be a town, go Cornwall wide. I might be wrong, but that's how I understand the system. And we have a needs allocation system. So you're quite right. If somebody with a greater need in Wadebridge applied for a house in Bude than a family from Bude, it's possible they may over-trump them and get that house. You're quite but that's the system that's in place.
The system is totally against the local people.
Right.
It's totally against them.
When you say local people never get houses, That's not correct, because I've had to deal with more housing problems than I would ever wish to deal with. And I've dealt with some pretty horrendous circumstances, and I have seen local families go into local houses. In particular, there's been one up on Hillhead, one of the nice big houses that's been occupied by a local family. So I can confirm that it doesn't always go wrong, sometimes it does go right. Going back to what Vicky was saying, the housing market, we know, is broken, and this is a national problem. It's not something which we can resolve or solve here in the Bude-Stratton Town Council. And far too much power, in my opinion, has been given to private developers, and far too little investment has been made by governments and councils in terms of what we traditionally know as council houses. Because historically, a well-built council house, built by a local authority, given a really decent tenancy and security, has a lot of value. And people would choose that over going into the private sector. But that almost doesn't exist anymore. Right, and the reason for that goes back historically several governments in terms of the right to buy scenario, which we all probably know exactly what that is. I do want to say Cornwall Council are building over 50 affordable units, and they go even further than that, because the town clerk described what affordable was. Affordable is simply 80% of market value, and that tag stays on that house whether it's rented or sold into the private marketplace forever. So if you buy an affordable house at 80% of its market value, when you sell it, you'll only be able to get 80% of its value, because the housing association that effectively was responsible for building it will buy that house at market value, or 80% of market value back off you. That's affordable houses. There is also social rent, which is effectively what we understand to be council houses. And the majority of the 50 plus houses that Cornwall Council are building behind the field behind B&M, and the field which is behind Cleveland's, which is for mature people, 55s plus. I think the majority of those are going to be social rent levels, but there will be some affordables and some affordable sales as well. So getting your name on the list doesn't mean you'll never get a house. Somebody going? There's a very good chance if you get on the list.
But will those houses guaranteed to go to local people? If not, there's pointless building them, because you're not going to save anything. And
there will be needs allocated.
Housing crisis in view.
There will be needs allocated according to the list. And I ask you this question: if you woke up tomorrow morning and said, "Do you know what? It's actually been my heart's desire to move to Nottingham," do you think you should be allowed to do that?
Or
any other town in the
excitement
UK?
should be, to be honest.
Because we have freedom of movement within this country, and we're allowed to move around.
If you can afford to move, you move. But you should be allowed to move into somewhere and take over a place that a local person can get that needs.
Well, you can't.
Okay, thank you.
I find some of the language troubling here.
Yeah.
I'm finding it troubling that members of the public are referring to people as prats and now referring to people as emmets. And I don't think that kind of language in relation to other just basic groups of people would pass by. And so I don't think we should be allowing or encouraging people to use those kind of derogatory group terms for people.
Agreed, thank you for that. Okay, so back to the agenda item in hand. So it was undertake comms, used survey in the planning process to evidence the need for smaller units, and explore and explain the community land trust idea. The only thing I wanted to say about that last one was that I've emailed Andrew George, who is the Chief Executive of the Cornwall Community Land Trust, and he would be very, very keen and willing to have an online meeting with a group of interested councillors to discuss and kind of tell us his, give us a bit of guidance from his point of view. So I didn't know whether as part of that explore and explain the community land trust idea, that could be a call imminently set up with myself and whoever else would like to be a part of it. Yeah.
Sorry, I wouldn't normally ask for a second bite of the cherry, but there's quite a big chunk of stuff that I forgot in my excitement of replying to Mr. James. Right, and it was about community land trust. And the community land trust piece is something that's been on the minds of councillors around this table for a long time. Sure. It's been our intention to do that, and we'd actually shelved it while we were doing this housing survey. So I'm really glad that it's now back on the table. But I've been told, informally, that one of our previous councillors, a chap called Ian Mason, has actually started a community land trust for Bude.
Oh, really?
So I think maybe we ought to be having a conversation with Ian,
Yeah,
because
I hadn't heard
I think that if we were to work with somebody and he's getting one going,
that. Yeah.
it would make obvious sense to do that.
Mm.
And the other thing that I wanted to say to the people around this table was that part of the Cornwall planning system allows for something called CIL, Community Infrastructure Levy. So when people build houses, they have to give a certain amount to Cornwall Council for local use. Because we've got a neighbourhood development plan, we get 25% automatically of any CIL payments that are made in our area. And they've been mounting up in a ring-fenced pot in our own budget over 3 years now, I believe, into the fourth year. And I did ask Keith a couple of weeks ago what that figure was.
I think we're about 58,000.
So we have got a nugget of money which we could use to leverage greater sums of money to actually get something moving in and out for this authority to work with the community land trust to actually genuinely provide some social affordable housing.
Okay. Thank you, Peter. Okay, so the recommendation of those three points proposed. As is. Okay, all those in favour of okay, thank you. Going a microphone. On to number 12 then, to consider a recommendation from the Inclusion Forum of the operation of a food and activity programme for the Christmas school holiday.
Do you want me to?
Yes, if you like, then I'll just call it out. Yeah, of course.
Well, I'm sure that you will remember the, well, I hope you remember the food and activity programme that was subsidised through the summer. So this is an extension of that, which is a 4-day subsidy at Christmas, which is all at the moment that the government will provide funding for this 4 days of Christmas. So that's why it's run like that. I think the success of our summer programme was absolutely evident when Ian came to talk to us, and also by the fact that subsequently details of the Bude-Stratton Town Council has been mentioned in dispatches, and people have been talking about how did we get this all up and running, and Ian himself has been talking to people around Cornwall about the success of the programme, and for the Christmas period he's expanded it. He was running it 60 a day over the summer. He expanded it to 100. He's also, if we agree this, he's going to be able to start a breakfast club. He's got local churches involved. He's talking more to the supermarkets. Apparently Sainsbury's in the summer will run for him. Gave him loads of stuff, and he's now talking to the other supermarkets as well. So it was a real big success story for us. A big success story for the children who got a day, of fun and a day of food. And I suppose my urging would be that we do the same at Christmas. There may be opportunities next year that we do something, that we think of a different model, maybe we expand it out or something like that. But I think for these 4 days of Christmas, if we could kind of keep roughly the same model, but we give addition of some support for a breakfast club, starting a breakfast club.
And I will just mention as well that, like with the one in the summer, we went to a maximum figure, which basically would have been that if everybody that turned up needed subsidising by us, that would be the worst case scenario. And that wasn't what was actually needed, but it covers that eventuality, doesn't it? That's the
Correct,
figures.
yeah.
And then the extra element there to provide the breakfast club, which is fantastic as well. So any questions from anybody before we propose? No? Yes, Peter.
I'll just say, when Liam came to us and gave us a report on the summer programme, I thought it was great. I thought it was money well spent, providing we've got it covered in the budget, which the town clerk's appears to be nodding his head. It seems to be a no-brainer to me that it's exactly the sort of thing where I think a lot of us stood for councillors in the first place. So happy to support it, happy to second your proposal if you made it.
Right. Okay, yeah. Good, so it was proposal that BSTC allocates £6,300 for the Christmas food and activities programme run by LJD Coaching, and that was with two separate elements, 6,300. BSTC officers undertake the support tasks outlined in the report, and that the inclusion form provides the strategic link between Liam and the council. Seconded, so all those in favour, please. Thank you. That's everybody. Thank you very much. Thank you for that. Okay, number 13, to approve alterations to the Town Council's volunteering arrangements and volunteers policy.
I'll leave on that if you want to. This is really housekeeping in putting together the open house full rooms programme. We were looking at how volunteers would fit into that, and we were looking to use our volunteer policy, and when we dusted it off we found that actually it was entirely heritage centric and everyone was reporting to the heritage development officer, which is entirely appropriate for what it was originally written for and used for, and actually that underpins part of the castle's registered status under the museum. So what I've done is really, I've left that one in place, so we've created a heritage centre policy and an agreement, but basically untouched as to not disturb anything in the short term, and I've produced a general volunteer policy that we can roll out for any other needs.
Fantastic.
So, no doubt, I mean, this has been done so relatively quickly, so in future, if you want to pick it up and make it even better, but at the moment I've just asked that you put something in place so we can run with it.
Yeah, okay. I feel very happy with it. Yes, Mr Jennings?
This warm room, are you going to put televisions in there for people?
I'm not honestly sure. I don't know the answer to that.
Oh.
I don't think so. I don't think that was the plan.
Surely it said, poor old dears might Mr Coronation Street or something.
So,
Too early for Coronation Street.
Yeah.
But then,
can I...
More like,
you can ask.
more boring.
Maybe Jackie ought to respond, but I don't think there is going to be televisions, but from what I heard at the meeting today, there's going to be a variety of activities, from board games to playing cards to having advisors for various different subjects, but each session is either 2.5 or 3 hours, one morning, one afternoon, and there will be something going on each different session, but I don't think it's going to be TV. It's going to be activities that will encourage people to get together.
Yeah, thank you, Peter. Good explanation. Okay, so,
I was going to.
oh yeah,
If you want to, I'll second what you.
So, propose that we approve the alterations to the Town Council's volunteering arrangements and volunteers policy.
I second that.
Lovely. All those in favour? That's everybody. Thank you very much.
I think that's been good. There is probably some more stuff to do around expenses, I think, especially at the moment, current living crisis and etc. But as you say, we've got something in place now, and we can think about that later.
Yeah. Okay, so number 14 is to agree the future arrangements of the Meet the Councillors sessions, and I think I'm heading over to Jackie. Would you like to say something? Thank you.
Those who weren't here, in April we had a proposal passed to start a weekly session where we went out to meet the public, and so they could meet us. We began after Easter and ran a session every Saturday for an hour. There were 2 councillors on each session at least. The feedback was that it was interesting, useful and appreciated. Wasn't always attended. Some weeks there, people didn't come, but it was that time. We agreed on the proposal to review it after 4 months, and I think we've gone past 4 months now. But because we sort of changed the format slightly over the summer, so we moved to pop-up events, so like Heritage Day, Queen's Jubilee, Life Weekend,
Yes.
Pride. those sorts of events. So that it sort of changed the format over the summer, and then there has been a gap. And I didn't pick it up again and get it sort of up and running again, but we have been missed, hence the correspondence that we had. So the proposal now is that we continue, but in a slightly different format, so that we meet monthly, have a meet on the first Saturday of the month at the castle, Cafe Limelight, and the invitations to any councillors who can and want to attend to come to that, and the public will also get a chance to have a coffee with each other. Get a chat outside meeting, so it sort of ticks a couple of boxes. And to start this Saturday, 5th of November, and go and carry on with that format until further notice.
Yeah, really good. Okay. Any questions from anybody on that? Yes, okay.
Yeah, I probably missed it. What time?
11 to 12.
And as before, our arrangements for who sort of volunteers are they going to be like on email or?
I think it will be less formulaic. So rather than Cal having to put something out every week saying it's going to be so and so and so, so literally, as long as there are two councillors there,
Yes.
it will just be some councillors that can make it.
Okay.
As many as possible.
I see. Yeah, gotcha.
It'd be great if Cal could just send us a reminder. I know the first Saturday of the month sounds completely obvious.
I've set up a Teams meeting, recurring
Schedule.
thing.
Excellent,
So
thank you.
I think, does that still go out as every month does it ping to everyone every month, or I can't remember.
We can set up a meeting in terms of
That's-
yeah.
like looks like a meeting invite.
Yeah.
I think for Saturday, I think had about 5 people responded saying they would come.
Yeah.
So.
Okay.
I might be just imagining this, but I'm pretty certain that at some previous discussion of this subject, we suggested maybe at least some of these meetings would be themed. So there would be like a meeting that you could talk about everything, but this one's particularly about housing, or this one's particularly about crime and disorder in the town, or this one's particularly about environment, whatever. And I think it would be quite useful, rather than just having it sort of nebulous, you can come and meet the councillors, to try and put a theme to at least a few of them.
Yeah.
Because gentlemen there with a special interest in the canals, sewage problems and so on, would then have a sort of a particular meeting to go to.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But we could, I imagine we could probably change that as we go and communicate that through.
Yeah, I don't think it matters too much in terms of between ourselves, but in terms of the communication out to the wider public.
Sorry, I'm just checking if we need a formal sort of vote on it.
So endorse, that's the arrangement.
Yeah, fair enough. Okay. Yes.
I just think we should also make it very clear that people can still come and talk to us about anything that there's
Yeah,
issues.
sure.
It's not just about
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So proposal from Jackie to
You can leave words, aren't you?
any old words in the brush.
Write this down. Propose that we continue with Meet the Councillor from the 5th of November until further notice on the first Saturday of the month at Cafe Limelight.
Yeah.
11 o'clock.
Perfect. Lovely, I'll second that. All those in favour then, please? Lovely.
Thank you everyone who took part when we were doing it, and please come along.
Thank you. I don't know.
I put at least two. Did you want us to put at least
It's a good question.
Because you said
I think we'll make sure they just are always are too.
Yeah.
We'll do that
I'll-
just internally.
Yeah, I'll just add, I mean, actually Steve, with his health and safety hat on, has
Yeah.
produced a personal safety guide for councillors, and he will be undertaking a risk assessment for you,
Fantastic.
just to put around the parameters of that.
Oh, that's great.
And obviously, you know, it must be in a
Safe.
safe position. But obviously, it is in an open public space with staff will be present, not at the meeting, but in terms of there are staff on site.
Yeah.
So,
That's great, thank you. Okay, number 15 is bank mandate to authorise the deputy town clerk as a signatory on the council's bank accounts. So that is just proposing
Second that.
deputy town clerk as a signatory. Seconded, all those in favour, please. Okay, thank you. Number 16, to agree Bude-Stratton's submission to the Bude Community Network Highway Schemes Programme.
I had a meeting on Wednesday with Chris and also from Oliver from Highways. The general feeling, as you see with the current CNP highway state which I've written, is that Bude has got two issues that are being solved currently, and that's the year one signed off basically, and that they're now looking for a year two, expressions of interest for year two basically. There is a remaining budget of £63,000-ish, and I was told that basically all their prices have all gone up to, obviously, as with everyone's prices, by 14%. And so it even means that the ones that we've signed off for have gone up in price. So it means that even less things will be signed off this year, because also they're expecting the prices to obviously continue to rise. And the general feeling was that a lot of parishes have been asking but not getting, but we've been very lucky to get to. And we've also got the traffic orders as well, the overnight campaigning. For some reason they include that as well within there. And they've also got expressions of interest that were deferred from last time that have already been sort of approved and put in. So there's going to be quite a lot on the plate, basically. Now, the thing that I did talk about with them was basically, this isn't necessarily the only scheme to get changes made and done within the town. As we've seen with the bus stop outside of Sainsbury's, there's other pots they can use to do things. There's also bigger pots to do things as well, with bigger schemes. And there's also the 20's Plenty, which basically that potential up and coming scheme has effectively taken basically near enough all my issues and deferred them, because the design that you would need for a 30-mile-an-hour crossing is very different to a design that you need for a 20-mile-an-hour crossing. So they don't want to design one and then bring the 2020s and then change it all and all that sort of jazz. So in terms of key dates that you should be aware of, basically, this would be going in for consideration effectively in January. So we probably won't hear until January, February time, if whatever we decide comes to fruition. But I've also got another review next month to go through our issues list to see what of those other pots the things can go into as well. So the issues that I've raised here are ones that have been either done by the public quite recently, but also ones that I want to point out, the ones that have gone into these other sort of pots. For example, there is an issue outside Efford Farm with people not being able to pull out a private road. It's quite a busy private road as well, there's camping and stuff down there. That's probably going to be potentially out of a highway generic pot because it's only a small amount of extra lines. The problem with that is Cornwall Council apparently already run out of budget for putting down new lines. And they won't get for this year.
Wow.
So they can't do any new lines until at least April. And actually, I nearly had an accident because of that the other day. So there's nothing they can do there. But they can do signs, so that's the thing. Things like the resurfacing around the all the back roads of town, within the actual shopping area. Apparently they're going to be putting into maintenance, so it's not necessarily a big thing they need to do. I mean, it's obviously going to be a lot of money, but it's going out of their maintenance budget. The big one which everyone highlights, which is the traffic due to somebody's car park during the summer. So I talked through with them, well, can we do anything towards this scheme? About maybe live parking or like something to do with how we rearrange the car parks or whatever. Basically, they've pointed me to someone very specific within Cornwall Council to start to raise that issue with. And actually, things like a project like such as a park and ride would probably actually be best to go through the Good Growth Fund, I reckon. So there might be something to put to the economic. I should imagine the economic town team would probably be quite interested to know that that could be a potential idea for the pot. I was completely unaware of that. There's other issues as well, such as I know that the road outside the Preston Gate Inn, people were saying about there's still speeding vehicles through the town. That's an enforcement issue. It's not necessarily going to putting down speed cameras and stuff isn't necessarily going to help that immediately. But also the same issue they raised was the fact that people were parking on a bit that they wouldn't be used a lot, on a blind bend and things. But actually, those people parking is going to be slowing down the people through the town. Because we've had something similar about people complaining about parking over the downs during the winter, and actually that slows down the traffic and stops people from speeding. So in some ways you want it, which is a bit counterintuitive. The other biggest raised issue is the Ben Coolen Road. Obviously, the trying to get across from the play park over to where the houses are in town. This is definitely the case where we have to wait for the 2020 change because there's a very specific design they're thinking about this area, which they can't do in a 30 mile an hour because of the articulated lorries need to come around the corner and things like that, and there isn't the space. It's quite interesting. And then there's some other enforcement issues that are raised. Now, there's three there's two ways that we can go about doing this expression of interest specifically for this scheme then. One is that we can request a full build of something. So it's like design and then we'll build it, which obviously requires quite a bit of budget. The other option that I asked was, well actually, can we at least get a design done so that we can move forward on some of these bigger issues that are in the town that we've never been able to move forward on before. And they said actually other community network panels have actually done that, but we haven't in this area yet, but they've been really successful. The one that I could find on the list that wasn't covered by the 2020 was at least getting some drop curbs done outside Bude Primary School, which I remember was an issue when I had a pushchair. But I'm still seeing obviously mobility scooters going down all the way effectively from the footpath all the way past the school, all the way over the speed bumps, and then eventually coming on to the path, which is obviously not ideal for them. So that is a potential full build, which I would hope would fit within the budget. But the problem with that one is they still haven't sorted out necessarily the maintenance, ownership and stuff. Now, it's completely owned by Cornwall Council, they just don't know which team owns it, which is the problem. So there's no guarantee that that would go through, and obviously it might get hooked up by the legal side, whatever, all that usual jazz. The other two schemes is, the first is outside, it's Poundfield, so that's, if you are going to Stratton School from the main road, it's basically that junction, which is a hellish scape to try and cross. It's very wide. It's obviously blind to almost come into, it's horrible. And that's obviously a big pipe where obviously plenty of kids are going to the school, primary school as well. And it has been looked at before, but it could be that whatever work that's going to be done there is not going to be fit within the scope of this scheme. It's going to be too big a budget, but the design can. And the design, they said, would be about £2,000 and would last 5 years, like a 5-year shelf life. And the solution they come up with through this scheme is we could pitch the bigger scheme, basically, and they'll be happy to do that. So that's one. And then the second one is having some sort of crossing through Stratton, the A3072, being able to get from one side of the road to the other.
So where the toilets are.
Yeah, basically, where the toilets are, or at least like where the medical centre is, or something extra, because I was specifically highlighted to a member of the public who is blind, who has to ask people to get them to cross. They don't have any tactile paving anywhere, and things like that. They also have a lot of issues with colliding traffic, apparently. So this is where like a bus and a lorry is trying to go over the bridge at the same time and can't. And there's also been multiple accidents of people coming out of their out of Bay Tree News, apparently. There's been like 2 cars written off there recently. So again, this is obviously the solution for this isn't necessarily, I mean, they could come up with a cheaper solution, but point would be to basically ask them to use a small bit of this budget to do a design. And personally, I would feel like we would have more chance of basically pitching for them to do a design than trying to do a full build, because basically the prices are going silly. We've already had some full build stuff, but there's obviously some serious concerns of some of these crossings that do need looking at. And the bigger pot apparently does want stuff like this now. So
I must say thank you for doing this piece, because it is incredible. To be fair, really, really good.
So yeah, I guess I open it then. Like, you've got effectively 3 choices at the bottom of the page there. That's the Stratton A3072, or then there's Stratton School Poundfield Junction, or there's dropping some curbs potentially around some Broadclose Farm with the asterisks of that's a build, might cost more, might not be able to get it done, and also there's a dodgy legal stuff there still.
And this would be to get a, what did you call it? A
Expand.
plan, yeah.
Yeah, like there's 2 Stratton ones are basically to get a design done.
Design.
And what will they do? It's not just a design. They do feasibility studies, apparently traffic studies, all that sort of jazz. They do the engagement of the public, and all. They do everything around it. It's just obviously you won't necessarily get the end thing out. But the way that they were talking to me, it was like you get this done, and then you apply for this bigger pot, and it will go through.
Okay.
Because they're the ones that are doing it as well.
Okay. Anyone's thoughts on these 3 items? Yes, Sean, and I'll go to Kevin.
Just in terms of like your criteria there, impact on local community, greater community area, number of users and safety concerns. For me, the Stratton School area, that matrix of junctions is probably the one that serves the wider community, our own community, the school, all of that in the broadest way. So and it's going to be a really expensive solution, but if we could get a design even sorted for that, for a future application to a fund pot, then for me that's the one. As much as I love the idea of having the crossing in Stratton, it's like narrow leadership and it's also quite restricted.
Might I add, it might not be the crossing at Stratton. It might be a Camelford solution where they could set like a one-way
Yes.
traffic
Okay.
lights, and then you let the other lot through.
Okay.
It could be a range. It's more we're proposing there's an issue here.
Right.
We solve it.
Okay, I see what you're saying, because that is again a pinch point, not just like locally, but in the summer when traffic is heavier. Obviously, we know from our local knowledge that that is an area where, like you said, a bus and an Arctic would get stuck easily. But then also the Calvin Junction is just an absolute mess. You would never design a road network like that with a school on it now. Obviously, it's built up historically, but it's just so it's really dangerous, and people fly down that hill, and it's just it is literally a serious accident waiting to happen, like someone getting run over because people go like 50 down the hill. So that's what I'm talking.
Kevin?
I was going to say pretty much the same thing. The obvious one, the one that sort of screams out, and it's screamed out over a number of years, is Stratton School. And I'm amazed that there's not been work done by Cornwall Council in the past. I'm amazed there's not a scheme on the shelf to come off to do that corner.
Historical information.
Okay, so I heard it whispered over there. Skitch's Corner is the which is what we're looking at.
Yeah.
And there has been work done, and there is a design on the shelf. I haven't got the drawings in front of me, but I've got all the references here. But I think what Oliver Jones, the highways manager, was saying is that this work was done probably 4 or 5 years ago. It just needs to be double checked and re-evaluated to make sure that it's the appropriate solution. My personal feeling is that a roundabout on that site would be the perfect solution. But what he's told me is that there are so many services that are in and around that area that digging it up would be worse probably than the Great Cormac roundabout. Took forever to do and cost £1 million. All right, so the best that we could ever hope for on that site is a traffic controlled junction. I'm happy to ask that I think that we revisit that scheme because it is dangerous. There's no question about it. I think for me, always the biggest thing is I really try hard to stick to the speed limits. Within the last couple of years, I did a Rossborough Advanced Driver training course, and one of the things that they really bang into you is don't exceed the speed limit, whatever you do. And I think it was really interesting. So I really try very, very hard to do it. And I'm astonished at how many people come flying up behind me when I'm doing 13 or 30. Even more so now that I've got a car that only does 28 miles an hour. That is maximum speed. But anyway, so I'd be happy with that. Education for local people, not to be so impatient and driving at the speed limit, I think is something that we haven't really talked about here, but perhaps we could try and integrate that somehow. But for me, the other thing which always has been a problem, and I'd really like to have addressed, is a crossing over to our own play park on Bencoulin Road. That to me is something which has been crying out for years and years and years.
Yes, Vicky.
Yeah, I was speaking to a lady who lives opposite, and she was saying it's wonderful all the improvements done to the play park. Absolutely loves it, but it's the nightmare getting to it.
Sure.
But yeah, one huge positive, but then a negative with it.
Yeah, like Katie said, once the 20s plenty scheme is brought in.
If I could come back, we could ask for a plan to be drawn up
In advance.
of the implementation of the 20 mile an hour zone.
I was told we shouldn't for this year, but for next year's expression of interest, because also it's still yet to go through cabinet or something, so it still might fall down and might turn around and say, no, we don't want it. But you know, the general direction feels like it is going that way. So I guess, I mean, we could sort of just ignore their advice and go, okay, no, we do want a design done for this one crossing across the play park. But well, assuming it's 20s to 20. The other thing that they did say was the one benefit that they raised of the community network panel merge is Cowerford obviously has a lot of solutions they've managed to get in, such as the 20, they've got the 20, and that being part of it, suddenly he gives us the ability to say, they've got it, we should be having it too. So it could be that for year 3, that I would hope we go through it. But to be honest, there's going to be so many sweeping changes for a lot of the crossings within town and things because of 2020. And it's just basically, as I say, there's more design solution opportunities for the speed going down. So, but for this year, this November,
Yes.
I feel like we should be dealing with ones that
That
hopefully should be done now, basically.
Yeah, I agree with everything that everyone said really. School, Poundfield, Junction also. Did anyone else have any comments before we go to perhaps a proposal based on that?
I think the only thing I would add is I'll probably still write the both up and then we'd submit the one, and if they basically turn around and say actually like no for whatever reason, then we've got another one in our pocket anyway. So, but submitting with the Stratton Poundfield, I'll be it's fine. That's what people want.
Proposal, I'll second that. Yes.
Yeah. So I propose that we submit the what would you like to call it? Sketches Corner. Sketches Corner for the community network panels, highways, expression of interest scheme.
Yeah. Yes, Peter.
Sorry, before we proceed, I think we ought to be a bit more ambitious.
Yeah.
Because don't forget that this goes before the community area network panel, and they then will prioritise. And I think we ought to submit at least 2, if not 3 schemes, because also the high-risk network manager will have his own priorities as to what he thinks is appropriate. So no more than 3, but I think we should do at least 3.
Okay, I propose that we submit both the Sketchers Corner and the Stratton A3072 to be written up for expressions of interest, and that we send both, but with a given priority of Sketchers Corner. So if they decline one, they decline.
Would you be prepared to add a third one, being the play part?
I
I just want to give them a choice.
No,
Because
I wouldn't do the play part at all. Basically, they said there's no point because the designs that they've got for the 2020, they've mentally already designed something for the 2020 for that exact thing. It's just they need to wait for the 2020 to happen, then they can put that into motion. So we've got an idea. He's got a very strong idea. That's his pet thing. Oliver's pet thing. So.
Okay, so Katie's proposal at the moment is the 2 Stratton related items to be put forward. So,
Happy to second
okay, and all those in favour of that proposal? Okay, and against? And abstain. Okay, thank you, Peter. Thank you, Katie. Okay. I'd like to pass the following I'd like to pass the following resolution that in relation to the remaining items on the agenda, publicity would be prejudicial to the public interest by reason of the confidential nature of the business to be transacted, and the press and public are instructed to withdraw. The following items are confidential and the meeting will proceed in closed session.
Can I go for a wee?
Yes.
People do.
Yes.
Second. All right, okay.
Thank you. All those in favour? Yes.
Your key. Cheers. That's quite useful.